Religion took the most sacred, perfect, complete act of creativity, making love between a couple, male and female, turned it into, well, anathematized it really. Outlawed it, despised it and rejected it, grudgingly tolerated of necessity, lest the religion die out for lack of people to practice it. Woe unto you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites, but I am come that you might have life and that there be life more abundantly. Life eternal, creativity, and life without end. Thank you, Heavenly Father. Thank you, Dad. You took the most beautiful and dressed it in disgrace, made it obscene, shook it from your presence as if it were dirty, degenerate, unwholesome and ungodly. You took the very essence of conception, of life eternal, labelled it and labelled it as obscenity, to suffer in darkness and grope in the wilderness of non-acceptance. Unacceptable behaviour to be condemned, outlawed, to be the black market of all black markets, to be sold for a song that the rich buy freely in darkness, and the poor suffer in absence, alone and isolated. That your rich have 300 wives and 700 concubines, and your poor have loneliness. Woe unto you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites, that strain at the gnat that the poor consume in morsels, whilst you abound in wives and mistresses, and flourish in wealth in your extravaganza of materialism, preying on their needs not met. You that harvest the finance of prostitution, entertainment, advertising, and internet. Woe unto you, predators of the children of God, the poor, the oppressed, the masses, your resource to damnation. I looked on the estate of man and said, there can be no God. And I knew in my heart what I rejected with all my heart. How could I have longed for the light except I had known darkness? How could I know darkness without having had the light to see? So I found I knew in my heart what I valued. I valued choosing to trust in the light with all my heart. soul, mind and strength. So God breathed on the darkness, on the chaos, on the absence of integrity, on the void, but for his knowing. And there was light. So it is that if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you might say to this mountain, be moved, and it will obey you. And nothing shall be impossible unto you. This is the Jesus testimony to the greatness of God, that you might reject the evil and choose the good, and choose life. Come unto me, all ye who hunger and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. You see, what the rich felt were blessings, were a nightmare of chains and imprisonment and confinement, such that the rich young ruler couldn't follow Jesus. If he'd had the joy and the blessing of giving half of his wealth away, he would have known what to do with the other half. Instead, he left it with his bankers, who invested it accordingly in the chains of other folk. Whilst the kind and the loving evaporate into the heavens. Thank you, Dad. Love you. Thank you, Dad. What we have called life is but a tale, and told by an idiot who struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. A poor player, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. In the Jesus story, he says to the rich young ruler, if you would enter into life, keep the commandments. He says, I do, I keep all these social commandments. You know, I don't kill, I don't steal, etc. Even so, you see, he didn't know love. Because love, loving kindness, comes from above, but he didn't own the commandments that recognize the importance of God. And therefore there was no love in the social order that he kept, of not killing, stealing, committing adultery, etc. Quite simply, he was powerless because he didn't own the love of God. Didn't have this prime mover in his life. He had his wealth instead. That was his provision, which was proved to be his poverty, denying him the ability to follow Jesus. We love God because he first loved us. We are children of life because our parents gave us love. You might be critical of it, but for them you would not be conceived. And it's probably them that actually nurtured you in childhood. Albeit you might think inadequately. You might not. What we're saying is that if you don't recognize the love of God, how can you joyfully enter into the life that He's given you? For you reject His care. Not recognizing the existence of His kindness and His being. What was the work that I had finished doing that you sent me to do? To tell them that you were Dad. Abba, Father, loving, heavenly, perfect, wonderful Dad. But those that were yours, those that were thine, thou gavest to me. Now mine, all mine are thine, and thine are mine, and I'm glorified in them now. I've finished the work that thou gavest me to do. I'm out of here. Those who have ears to hear, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches too. Thank you, Dad. Thank you for your eternal story. Jesus.